Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Advisor's Edge podcast. I am your host, Rob Jacomen, and guys, we have a super exciting show for you today. It's actually going to be probably one of our best episodes so far. I'm actually going to play the other side and I'm going to interview my co-host, Chad Ramberg. And we are going to talk about something that I know Chad is extremely passionate about and has had tremendous success with. And what we wanted to do today is really lift open the hood and really share enormous value with all of you. We're going to talk about something that is absolutely incredible, and it's all about lean startup and Kaizen. And this is something that Chad has had an incredible journey over the course of his career and has really brought it to his business and getting incredible results. And really, that's what we're after here. What can we do to further enhance the relationships that we have with our clients and future clients, but also build a business that is extremely efficient? It's continuously improving, getting better, and just delivering enormous value to all the people that we've been called to serve. So with that being said, Chad, I want to introduce you to the Advisor's Edge podcast as a guest. And let's dive into this topic because it's really exciting. And you have an incredible journey and a great story to tell as to how you even got into this in the first place. And I think this is really the best place to start.
Yeah, thank you. You're right, Rob. I'm really passionate about it. So no notes needed for me on this one. We just kind of dive in and go. Can I tell a funny little story starting out here?
Absolutely.
It's kind of, and this will all come to light, I think, over not only this episode, but the next few episodes we have, because one of the most exciting things is I'm going to talk a little bit probably about John Swaggart in here. He's really my sensei, my teacher, the guy that helped me really crack this egg open and start making some omelets. Okay. But here's the funny little story. So I'm not the most organized guy. 5S in lean language is what you do to clean out a space, make it work better for you. And interestingly enough, my wife's a professional organizer and that's what she does for a living. So we have the nerdiest conversations, but she's teaching someone, excuse me, she's teaching a new employee how to do it. So she says, Chad, can I have my employee clean out my closet at home? And I'm like, ugh, okay, sure. Go for it. Not clean, organize, actually go through and make it work better. I get a little bit of a pack rat in some of the corners so that she wanted that resolved. But in going through it, what she found was this folder here where when I was an advisor, 13, 14 years ago, I was finding some decent success. They said I was having great success in my first year as a financial advisor, 63, 65, 7, all of that. I had 5 million under management. They said, you're doing great. But I only took 20,000 home a year to eat on, and that wasn't quite enough. So that's why I pivoted. And that's kind of what got me to serving advisors with their insurance and risk management stuff. But while I was doing that, they said I was having great success. So I started developing this plan. I called it FLIPS. That's Financial Lean Planning System. So it was what I was doing in the financially advisory space to build my book. And the funny thing is today when I look at it, I'm like, wow, 5 million in assets from 0 to 5 million in 1 year. That doesn't feel like very good. But at the time, apparently it seemed good. We see all kinds of things from our perspective now, but I thought that was interesting. And the question for this, one reason I wanted to do this is if we could find, 10 to 20 advisory firms that really enjoy and are passionate about continuous improvement, we call that Kaizen here, we could do some amazing things. For me, it's not about buying more insurance and stuff like that. I'm just so passionate about it. I would love to do that sort of work with some advisors. So in a nutshell, that's what got us here. But if I could only do one thing, this is what I would be working on. I don't really care about insurance. Don't tell anyone that.
I won't. I promise. I don't either. What I care about most is, I'll tell you what I care about most and how it matches perfectly with what you're talking about. I want to help people win. Mm-hmm. Like at the end of the day, like God has called me to serve people in a way to help them be better, to win, and to really develop that person that's capable of achieving those goals. Because you can write down goals all you want, you can create all these maps and game plans and all this stuff, but I think what it's really about is developing the person on the inside who is capable of being that person who can win. And that's right. I think where the lean startup and the Kaizen, really that whole philosophy comes into play. And if you embrace that, that's what I've learned from you, Chad. And it's had an enormous impact on me personally, is just this whole idea of continuous improvement and just being better than you were yesterday. Because if you do that every day, here's what I learned from you, and then we can dive in deeper. What I learned from you is if I can detach myself from results and outcomes and just focus on doing the things that I need to do every day to add value to the people that I serve and just keep getting better and better at that, the results are going to come. The results are going to come naturally. And that's what I learned from you, because I came from the sales background. It's like, go, 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 grind, 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 grind. And that's how you win. And it's like, what I've learned is that is not necessarily the path to success. The path to success is continuous daily improvement and just being better than you were yesterday and just adding enormous value to people's lives. So did I get that wrong, or am I on track?
Well, you know me, I like to ask a few questions or think about it a little bit. So here's what I like to say about that. You can absolutely build an incredible business, an incredible book of business just by grinding. Hundreds to millions of thousands of people have done it. Okay, so I don't want to disrespect the work that they've done. Absolutely can be done. The quarter twist here, to use an analogy from a past guest, is that when we can strategically focus on the inputs and we have a process that gives us a known output, what you can do is you can start to focus your mind, put aside all of that noise, and focus on what's really important. So it's really about, in my mind, kind of a strategy of how are we going to be successful? And success means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So what we want to do is we want to build an improvement engine that we can focus on the inputs and measure and learn over time how to tweak that engine to get a little bit better results in the long run. And what we found is when we do this really, really well, and to be clear, Box Professional is always improving. So we hope to be better tomorrow than we were today, and we're better than we were yesterday. But when we do that, it creates a much stronger development and improvement system that over time sees great results. And the key, and the reason this becomes so important, because it's really, look, we work in the financial services industry. Essentially, it's all about the money, right? Either protecting the money or making more money or whatever. That's very sexy, very shiny, very distracting, okay? It all comes down to those inputs and high quality. What does the client want? How do we help them achieve that better? That's your engine. How do we get better at that? The results are going to come just naturally. You don't even have to think about it. Now, we need to make sure, and it's helpful to have the accounting processes and everything else in there to actually look backwards and see, if that's part of the learning process. Okay. But that's kind of what I've learned. So we're really, it's about building that improvement engine. And then what are we going to point it at? It just so happens that at Box Professional, we've pointed it at providing a better process for our clients when it comes to, them buying their insurance for their RIA. Does that make sense?
Makes a lot of sense. Can I tell a quick story? Would it be okay?
Yeah.
So did you ever hear the story about the country of England, their Tour de France team? Did you ever hear the story of how they turned that entire program around?
Oh, vaguely, I think, but refresh my memory.
This is awesome because I'm like a student of like the tour and triathlons and professional sports. So I love this kind of stuff. It's very similar to the Boys in the Boat, that where that whole story. Well, the interesting thing is England hadn't won a tour. Like they hadn't had a tour champion for like ridiculous amount of time. It was like 40 years or so. So they brought this guy in, this guy who's an expert and specialist in like Kaizen and like lean, if you want to call it lean startup. And he said to the ownership, he said to the leaders of the tour for England, like all these guys who were part of this program, he said, you just have to trust me. Here's our game plan. Here's what we're going to do to turn this around. And here's what he didn't do. He didn't do any of these big major changes. What he did is, we are going to systematically, and he said, you got to trust me on this because I guarantee you, we are going to have a tour champion at some point. I don't know when that's going to happen, but if you guys follow my process and do exactly what I recommend you do, this is going to happen. So what he did is systematically went through every aspect of what it would take to fine tune this engine. And what he meant by engine is all the moving parts of building a team, the equipment you use, the amount of sleep the riders are getting, the nutrition that they're feeding themselves. They said that if you watch or listen to the story, they went into as much detail as going through the trailers that transport the equipment and make sure that they're completely dust free and totally clean, because they found that could prevent, like, even if it tweaks a second off of like a time trial, by having clean equipment, they found that you get better results. Just the stuff that the riders were wearing and being more aerodynamic, they started to change these little things over time. And what happened is they just started getting better and better, and the time started going down. And all these different changes that they made were small incremental improvements, but collectively as a whole, what it did is it eventually, England became one of the leaders. They had a Tour de France champion from this, but it took them 10 years.
Right.
And that was
it's not an overnight thing.
No.
But it's a learn by doing.
Yep.
Okay. And so this is, a lot of people think this is all theoretical. Okay. Now, fortunately, we have really hundreds, if not thousands of years of theory and language that's already in place that we can use to communicate how to learn that next thing. But ultimately, so we're going to build off of all those things we've learned in the past. And when you get into this is what you learn. We kind of usually start with like a Henry Ford and then go through Deming and then Toyota. And then, in the 90s, us bringing lean back to the US. And then you get into Six Sigma and all of these things they're all part of it. What are we learning from it? We're not going to forget what we've already figured out. Gosh, no, let's not. Let's build on that and learn the next best way to do it. And one of these things for us here, what we've learned is, because it's all about removing waste, but part of that in the professional services space, we're going to use those same tried and true principles that have been around for a very long time. Okay, but we're learning in some cases a different way to communicate it. Or and how are we going to build off of that? There's always something else to learn, right?
Well, I'm always come from a standpoint of, because I want to dive deeper into how you, first and foremost, before we even go there, why are you so passionate about this? Like, tell me your why, Chad, because I don't think anybody really knows. I think that's the most important foundation is, what is your personal why? Why are you so passionate about this, and why do you believe in it so much?
Yeah, well, it usually goes back to your childhood, right? And for me, growing up in the 80s, it was pretty simple. I mean, I had a great life, okay, as a kid. My dad's a firefighter. My mom's a school teacher. But it was very low middle class, okay? We had everything we needed, but not a lot extra. Okay. And when you're a kid, you're looking around and your buddies are getting GI Joes and all the latest Star Wars figurine, and they got the whole, AT-AT Walker and stuff. You go over to their house and play with it, and they got Nike shoes and all this fun stuff. And I'm like, what in the world? I don't have any of that. That would be kind of cool. Yes, it's great. I can play with my buddies, but that's kind of, your preteen sort of stuff. But I was also raised in a very deliberate, conservative household, which I greatly appreciate, because that taught me, hey, it's not about me. It's about, those around me. What can we do together? Okay. But early on, I went to private school. I was lucky enough to go to private school, and I looked around, and I was part of the high school, essay president, stuff like that. And I'm going to the board meetings for the school. They had some student leaders sit in on the board meetings and see it. And I'm looking around at these individuals that are sitting around the table, helping guide the leadership of the school and the development of it. I'm like, that's pretty cool. I like that business stuff. I think I can do that. I used to want to be an architect because I like drawing buildings and stuff. But then I'm like, this business thing, I think there's something there. And my grandma, my great grandma, actually, she used to say, Chad, you got to understand money and how that works. So all of these seeds were planted really early on with me. And what that meant was, as I started developing, growing up through high school and then college, I really focused on business. And I'm like, I want to be a really good business person, whatever that means. Didn't even really know what it meant. And I said, well, to do that, I got to build a business really well. I got to be able to manage people, manage organizations. And all of that kind of grew into, so the why kind of started was, how can I be my absolute best? What am I here to do? And how can I live that the best? Right. And so that's kind of where the why started. And then you just start iterating on that. And the cool thing was, as I went through life and started seeing these different ways to approach it, I went to my degree is in business management, super exciting, right? But and they talked a lot about change management and stuff like that. And I started to put these things together. And that's kind of the inherent why. And I really enjoyed that in college and finishing that up. But then when John Swaggart came along, it was through DuPont. Actually, at the time, I was managing Autobody shops, collision repair. And DuPont, we bought a lot of paint from DuPont, okay? They said they wanted their clients to be successful. And there was this guy on the East Coast named John Swaggart. He helped build and develop body shops and, was doing this lean Kaizen thing. And we were having a really, really difficult time at the Autobody shop at that time, okay? This was early 2000s, maybe mid 2000s. Anyhow, we were having a really tough time. And what happened was, as DuPont came to us and said, we think you guys have the ability to do a lot better. And we have this course that John Swaggart was developing on the East Coast to teach lean process, Toyota production system to collision repair. Okay. And I was at the point, I was the general manager of the organization, and the owner and I are sitting there talking with this guy from DuPont. And I'm like, you know what we're doing right now is not, it's keeping the business going, but it's not growing. So, and I don't know where to go. So if the owner wants to, sure. And the owner said, well, yeah, let's do it. So that was, so I'm telling you the why of two things, the why of, what drives me, and then the why of why this lean Kaizen thing. Why I got so passionate about it is because after going through these courses and actually changing the whole way that we worked within the auto body shop, from the numbers of it, the average time to get a car from in the shop until done was 3 weeks. We were able to get that down to, within a week. So massive improvements there, and some cool things were happening. But it takes a while for that to flow through and see that in the revenue and income of the business and actual financial success. You see the improvements first, and then eventually the rest of it will show up. But the way we set it up, we were able to see those learning and improvement as we go. And so it got really exciting. And what the light bulb for me was, I could see how everything I was being taught and had seen up to that point came together. Okay. So it's because, you know, when you're reading about how to do a good job and it's all very theoretical, but how do we put it into practice? What I learned in college was very helpful, but how do I put it in practice? John helped me put that into a practice and put a structure around it that was a repeatable learning process to go out there and learn something we didn't know before, which if you talk about from John in that, you know, he's gone on and done a lot of really cool stuff. That'll be in a later episode. But what you see is how he's applied that to different businesses and organization, and the evolution of that is absolutely fascinating. To live it and do it is more fun. It's big highs, big lows sometimes, but that's why those challenges to be able to do that, because when you're sitting there with the team and they see, oh, hey, we're doing this not for the business owner. We're doing this to be more successful as a team, and we can do it together, and they can start to see how their piece of the puzzle fits into the larger. And you get that feedback loop of growing and development. So it's organizational learning is really what it is. That is what drives me. And you don't get it as often as I would like, but when you do, it really sticks with you. I think back to in the Autobody shop at one point, you know, there was a couple specific cars being repaired, which is kind of a funny thing to say, but that went through like butter through the system. They just flowed right through. But the most exciting time was when I had a painter, Rod is his name. He comes up to me and he says, Chad, we're winning, right? And I'm like, yeah, you're right, Rod. We are winning. So here's what's behind that is we were winning on our improvements and processes going through, but it takes 30 to 90 days for it to start to show up in the numbers. And it wasn't showing up in the numbers fast enough for the owner, and he nixed it. And the craziest thing for me and the team that's working out there every day to get it done, they could see us winning. And we were on that. We were just starting to hit that J curve. But the leadership of the organization says, nope, we're done. I said, yeah. So it was both a big high for me and a big low. Now, I already actually knew because, you know, as part of the discussions, and I was like, okay, you know, you chose to take us down this path and you chose to move us away from it, and that's fine. I picked up enough from the path. It's like, I cannot let that go. I have to work that way, because once you get it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. There's the point right there is, even though you experience, because, you know, I had a great coaching call yesterday. I actually just want to tell a quick story about this. I had a great coaching call yesterday with my personal coach. So I highly believe in coaching, by the way, and anybody and everybody should have a personal coach or somebody that is a mentor or somebody that they can rely on to, you know, kind of look at things a little differently than you do, or you can bounce things off of. And the thing that I asked him a specific question, and it's all part of our mastermind group. And I asked him a specific question, and you know what was the thing that resonated with me the most? What I really resonated with is him telling everybody how he assessed the situation and felt like he did it wrong. Mm-hmm. And he talked about his own failures or the things that he would have done differently to change for next time. And so the big takeaway for me is he shared something that made him feel very vulnerable in the moment, but man, was it a huge, huge learning experience for all of us, because I walked away with, oh my gosh, my coach is fallible. He's human. He makes mistakes. But then he's sharing with us how he did things differently after learning from that experience, so that we could put all those pieces together. And I feel like this is what you're sharing here is You learned an experience, but you got it. Like you were onto it because you could see the vision of how this could work.
And it was painful.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it.
But it was a moment of growth. And one of the things about, really, really good Kaizen lean process improvement is that what you're doing is you're building a system to show you where the waste is, which it looks like where the failure is. And now the better you get at it, the more you can see the problems, the better you can see the problems. Because what we're doing is when we can see the problems and we can understand the root cause of the problems, then what ends up happening is you can make better decisions and remove them. And when you can get to that root problem and you fix it, a lot of things just start to fall into place down the line. The problem is it's really, really hard to see the root cause of the problem. It's a skill. And I doubt we're going to get in, because we are talking more theory today. Okay. And this is a learn by doing thing. We'll probably have another episode later. We may have a series of episodes about this, but in the practicality of it, like actually how it works. Okay. Mm-hmm. How we do it, because it's a practice. It's not theory, but understanding the theory at this point, I think, hopefully will help people understand. They can self-select in or out. Are they interested in this or not?
Well, this is what I talk about often. It's like, first you have to start with the why and the what. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily going down the route of the how just yet, because I think it's important to understand the foundation first and get people on board with, hey, this is why it works. This is what works or what didn't work for me. But let's do this. Let's get practical for a minute, because I want you to share, Chad, one example of how you took that experience with the Autobody shop, mm-hmm. and you took that experience and now you're at BPI, you're at Box Professional, mm-hmm. and you are a co-founder in this business. You launched this business with a vision. So you started with this vision. Obviously, you wouldn't start something if you didn't think like, hey man, I know this can work. Share for us an example of how you applied something that you learned when you first saw that vision in that Autobody shop, and now you're running a business. Share with us like an example of how you applied what you learned to your early beginnings at Box Professional.
Yeah. So one of the things, just to give a little bit of concreteness around it, is so in lean, you've got the 8 wastes, and one of the wastes is waiting. Okay. And so, and I said, professional service is a little bit different than building a car or fixing a wrecked car. Okay. But from fixing a wrecked car, one of the new things that John taught me is to say, hey, how can you take a process that has extreme high degree of variability? Okay. And how do you standardize that down to get a process that you can build upon, even though you're going to maintain that high degree of variability? What does that look like? How do we apply these and learn from it? Okay. That's one of the best things that John Swaggart told me and taught me. He didn't put it in those words, but that's what I came away with it from. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then what happened was, when I got into being a financial advisor, what I learned was, I said, hey, sometimes a big value, because I'm looking at these 8 wastes, and waiting is a big waste, which it is. Okay. But clients actually value waiting sometimes. So the big learning that I learned when I was a financial advisor was, waiting can be a waste. And the other side of that coin is that it's highly valued also. So the example for that is, when I was a financial advisor, I had a bunch of clients that maybe they were just about ready to make a job change, right? And so they were going to they had a new job, they had their 401k that they've been putting the money in for several years, and they had to build nest egg. And what are we going to do with that They valued waiting until it's time to pull the trigger once they got into their new jobs, 3 to 6 months in. Now is the time to work on fixing that, getting the best results for that pot of money, right? So waiting became not only a waste, but a value. Now there's a window there. If you got to that window, they're ready to go. And when they're ready to go, they want to be ready to go. So then it comes from a value to a waste, right? So a couple of interesting points of what I learned. So then in applying that at Box Professional, what happens is we want to take our cycle time at Box Professional from the very first time we talk with the potential client until they become a client is anywhere, if it's really fast, it's 3 months. Okay. But more typical is closer to 2 years. So somewhere between 3 months and 2 years, and this isn't our timeline, this is what the client needs, right? Because it's not widgets we're working on. These are people and real life things. It's way more complicated, way more variable. So what ends up happening is we says, whatever we're doing today has an effect basically 2 years out. So how do we take and make sure that whatever we're doing, what we choose to do right now is actually leading us to success 2 years down the road? So, and this is where we came up, and this, here again, this, I learned the units part of it was from the Autobody side. You unitize what you're doing, and then you measure and you prove upon the units. And then that math comes out. You can look at it in time, or you can look at it in dollars, or whatever that needs to be given the situation. But we did that for the work that we do here at Box Professional. That means that we know that clients value certain activities that we do. And the concept is here, if they were to pay us, now they don't pay us until we bind coverage and start working for them in that fact, but they value a lot of the work we do until we get to that point, even though we don't get paid for it. So let's take those things and put a unit behind them and say, if we're focused on doing these things, we can actually take that 2 years from now and bring it all the way into the present. It's almost like taking the future value and bringing it into the present value. And then we can choose the tack time, how often we're looking at that. Are we actually improving on doing these activities that clients value? So we know we're going to win in the future, or are we not? Okay. So what that looks like is we've chosen a tack time of every 2 hours. And we have a certain number, a target number of units, and then we can measure, are we successful or not? Yes or no. It's a binary, real simple. Now we get information from that. When we get a yes, we're like, yep, great, let's keep going. Okay. If we get a no, it's like, no, we were not successful. Why? What was your biggest challenge? What was your biggest impediment? This helps us do that root cause analysis to find out what's really making it hard for us to be successful for our clients. Okay. And then what do we need to do to remove those constraints? Okay. And then it starts, one of those things is, so we're taking it, bringing it all that 2 years all the way down into the present, and we're getting really analytical around it so we can look at and say, this is the situation. And usually when you start to dig into that, you're going to remove some of the emotionality of it, but you're also going to take, it's not just any one tack time doesn't really matter at all, but it's the accumulation, just it's an experiment. So we want a whole bunch of tack times, maybe 100, 150 of them. And then we can start to look at over time, what is that impediment? So it's not about just, because this is one of the things I learned. In any one tack time, when I get a no, look, we want to win, right? Mm-hmm. When I get a no, that feels like the biggest problem I have forever. If I just fix that one problem, everything would go better. That may or may not be the case. If that one problem only comes up once or twice a year, is it a big deal? No. You deal with it and you move on. So an example of where we did this was let's see, trying to think of which one might be the best example. We go through and, I'm going to use one that Ryan and I found really early on. Okay. We're measuring our tack times, right? It's actually really early on with Box Professional. Ryan and I are measuring it. And what we're finding is we are having pretty good success. 80% of the time we're successful. But darn it, we just can't break like 85% success rate. And when we looked at our tack times, we looked at it and said, well, what's going on in these tack times where we're not being successful? And so 80% of the time, so out of 10 tack times, you're only missing 1 or 2, right? Well, you're missing 2 to be exact. And we looked at it, well, a lot of the times we're missing the tack time on Monday. It's like, why are we missing tack time on Monday? Well, because we're coming in, we get the day going and we're hitting it. We only measure 3 tack times out of 4 a day. And usually it's the 4th tack time that we don't measure. So we can either use that for either cleanup or, or we could use it for learning something based off of the work that we did. Because there's things that in learning, there's things that we need to do that don't directly calculate back to a value for the client. They just expect us to do better. And we want to do better. But anyway, what we learned is we were missing that Monday tack time, like 2 or 3 of them on Mondays very consistently. We're like, well, why are we missing it? Well, we come back from a weekend. In the work that we do, it's not unusual to get a bunch of emails over the weekend that say, hey, I need X, Y, and Z, and it's really important. It's important to the client. So we take care of those and we're getting going on Monday morning, and that just takes a little bit more time. And so we said, well, we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure on Monday morning. So how do we set ourselves up to win? We say, rather than having that 4th tack time where we're not measuring our units, what if we switched it to the 1st tack time we're not measuring our units? And the next 3 we are. So functionally in the day, it doesn't change. We've just reorganized it. We did that, boom, 98% success.
Wait, let me take a step back for a second. What is your definition of success? Because I don't think a lot of people understand even what tack time means. I don't think they understand what success metrics are. I mean, let's not make the assumption that anyone has any idea what we're talking about here, because I do, but I don't know that everybody understands exactly what it is that you're measuring and what success means to you.
Yeah. So success, we define ourselves. And in this sense, okay, success is, a specific example of what 1 unit is. Okay. 1 unit is when we reach out to a potential client and touch base with them. That can be a phone call. That can be an email. That can be maybe we connect on LinkedIn. Those are all 1 unit. Okay.
And that's a measurement of value. So you've reached out. I want to make sure I understand this so everybody else does. When you perform that activity, everything can be measured. You measure that activity as a unit of value. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's correct. That's
Okay.
correct. And the theory here is, well, not theory, it's practical. If they don't know you're there, they don't know you can help them, because we work nationally, right? We can't go out and visit everyone. It's impossible. But we know that if they know, first of all, because we're a specialist, we very focused in on a specific niche. Half the battle is just people knowing that we're here and available.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly.
So we found they value that and we know they value that because when we have 80 units in that sort of activity, we're going to have one discovery call. Okay. And that discovery call is another set of units. So we had a specific mathematical calculation that we came up with, and we say now a discovery call is not 1 unit, it's more valuable. Now they might think it's a sales call, but it's a qualifying call to find out, is it helpful? Should we go further or not? Right. So like any good discovery call is it's mutual. But for those when we have that, it may end up being a nothing burger. They may say, hey, we're not interested. It's not right time or whatever it is. But we found over time, the value of that is 7 units when we have a discovery call. Now we're putting more time into that too. Okay. So in this case, units is almost a measurement of time, but it's doing those activities that clients value. We know that the clients value because they're willing to spend and or want to spend more time with us to understand what we know and possibly do business with us in the future.
And I think that's a clarifying thing right there, Chad. I think it's really important for everybody to understand and know is if somebody's willing to spend time with you on a discovery call and they value their time, it means that is valuable to them. Because if they didn't value that time to spend with you, they wouldn't do it. So obviously they're taking time out of their day to, hey, this is really valuable to me. We want to learn more. We want to find out how you can help us solve XYZ problems, or you know what, maybe it's not the right fit, but we got a lot of value from you by having this call. We have a better understanding of you and your organization and the fact that you guys are specialists. And guess what, Chad, when the time is right, we're going to reach back out to you, or you guys are free to reach back out to us again when the timing aligns just, maybe a little better.
That's right. That's right. So, and what it does for the team members, the onboarding relationship manager, for them, it elevates the quality, because all of this comes back to the highest quality for the client, because some clients in 15, 20 minutes, they can get through that discovery call, find out what they need to know, and vice versa. So we don't need to spend, and we don't want to spend a lot of extra time kind of digging into stuff that the client doesn't value. But here's the thing. Some clients, we get them on the phone. Most of our clients are relational, right? Because as a financial advisor, relationship is probably the most important, that trust. For us, it's trust too, but it's a little bit more transactional, okay? Mm-hmm. How relational is that potential client we're talking to? Some of them want to spend the first 10 minutes just talking about challenges in their lives. Others, they get into it and they're like, hey, I go through my insurance every single year. I want to know X, Y, and Z. Can you help me with this? Does this make sense? Right? And they're gonna feel differently. So that's why we try and not put too many constraints around that call. But we know we have that call. That's 7 units. That's a value that's really helpful. And then if we go forward into a RIA view, that's our insurance review process here. Building that report is a certain number of units. Presenting that report is a certain number of units. Getting quotes is a certain number of units. They all have a value. So for our onboard relationship managers and our renewal relationship managers, they're doing all of these things that clients value, and the better we do them at a higher quality, the easier it gets. So we're looking at how can we produce higher quality units more effectively. And our target, so directly to your question, the win is when you hit that target every TAC time and you stack those up. And if you're successful, right now we're at a 93% success rate, which is really, really high. Mm-hmm. It's actually too high. Okay. Think of this like gamification.
I was just thinking about that. To me, gamification, this is where it gets fun, is because the culture that you're building is around winning and of being a high performance machine and team together. So everybody collectively is working towards something. And that's what I think is so cool, is when this finally dawned on me, and like when my light bulb went off, I was like, oh my gosh, you're now able to optimize people's time on your team so that they are focused on quality and optimizing that experience with every single client interaction or something that the client would value, so that collectively as a team, it's like you're accumulating points together. So you're you're all driving that boat together in the same direction, so that everybody can see the dashboard and they're like, all right, guys, we can do this. Like, and you have found over time that by measuring these units and by constantly tweaking and improving over time, it dramatically increases your results and your effectiveness as a team. Did I summarize that pretty well?
That's right. That's right. But we're also doing it. So the Kaizen part of it is, when you hear Kaizen translated, if you punch it into Google, it's going to say continuous improvement. when I think of that, I said, okay, I'm not Japanese. I don't know the language. Okay. But I do understand Zen, like a Zen garden or something like that. And there's not an English word for me that really translates well to that, but I can understand Zen. And I can understand Kai, I believe, from my understanding, is basically change. So I think of it as Zenful change. And that means a lot of different things, because especially in professional services, life is complicated both for our prospective clients, our clients, and for us. And how does all that fit together? And we need to be able to do that more and more Zenful every single day. And you could use a lot of different words to describe that, but that's just the words I choose to describe, because this is the best way I've learned how to understand it. Right.
I look at it like a flow state. As an athlete, somebody who's like, those times where you're just in this flow state, like when I do podcasts, I think more clearly, I'm more focused. I actually have a routine before I even get on the microphone. People maybe don't know that. I have a mental routine that I go through, because here's the way I look at this. Here's the point I'm trying to make too, Chad, is you can apply the things that you have learned and mastered. You can apply it to anything in life. You can apply it to your career, the way you sell, the way you do a podcast, the way you operate every single day to become and optimize and maximize that human performance. But collectively as a team, like I want to show up and be my best version of me for you, Chad. I want to be my best version of me so that what I think about is maybe different than a lot of other people. I think about who's watching and who's listening that I could personally be of value to, or that you could personally be of value to, because that's why we do this show.
Right.
That's the whole purpose of doing this podcast is it is an embodiment of Kaizen and this whole understanding of continuous improvement, or flow state, as I like to call it.
Well, yes. And here's the interesting thing. Another interesting thing we've learned is, so I think is, gamification, and there's been some amazing articles and books written about that, right? But what we have the ability to do now, because we have this engine, this improvement engine, where we have, 2-hour tack times, we can see where our success rate is. If you're winning all the time, I don't know if you're much of a gamer. My son's 19 years old. He's gotten me into some more recent games. And if you're playing a game and it's too easy, you're going to play it for a while. But if it's too easy, eventually you're going to say, no big deal. Might as well go somewhere else. It's no fun. We like a challenge. Conversely true, if you just cannot beat that game, or you can't get to the next level, you're going to be, peace out, I'm done, right? I'm going to do something I can be successful at.
Exactly.
And we're all at a different level and a different place of understanding and learning and stuff like that. But with this tool, what we're able to do as an organization, and this is where, this is a whole nother book 3 and 4 starts to get into leadership. Okay. And how we lead the team effectively. But this for me is a tool to help my team grow as we go, because not everybody's at the same spot. But I want to make sure that, and I've seen this, one of the interesting things we learned, we've had times where we were either growing fast and we needed more team members, or maybe we had a team member that he was a fantastic guy. He moved on. He became a financial advisor, which was what his dream was anyway. He worked for us for 1.5 years. He was absolutely awesome. But he got the opportunity to go work with his, childhood buddy. And I'm like, man, Cole, you're great, but I can't tell you no. I don't blame you. I would be going to work with my childhood buddy too. So he did. We wished him well, but that changed what we needed to do. And it put us in a new point of learning of how do we get someone else up to speed to be able to keep doing what we're doing. So we went from literally like high 90s down to 40 or 50% success rate for a while.
So there's an adjustment period too in all this.
Well, we had to learn something we didn't learn yet. And that is, how do we get as an organization? Now at that time, we were a really small organization. I had three 3 or 4 people, I think, on the team. And so we're like, okay, one person gone, that's 25% gone. That's a huge effect. And then you learn all this stuff that what do we got to do to backfill that? And the way we work is a little bit different. It takes a while for somebody to understand how we're doing it. We had to get them, we didn't have a good system for teaching new team members. That's really what it came down to. Mm-hmm. So that's what we learned. So we started to learn, we started to implement some of that. First off, it's more of we're on fire. We've got to make sure that our clients are taken care of, and we don't drop the balls for clients as best we can, kind of get that. And then what do we need to learn to be able to build it up? So next time, because life's going to happen, there's going to be turnover. Next time we can be more successful at it. What things can we put in place? High degree of learning, but it was a tough time to go through that. And then once we learned it, now, is it perfect? No. We're going to have that situation come up again, and we'll learn and improve and iterate on that. Okay. But we definitely learned something. And my point here is to say there's this window that's kind of the sweet spot to be operating in. And we should probably sometime get somebody who's like a game designer on here. That would be cool.
Probably.
Anyway, they probably know at what point is there too much winning and at what point is there too much learning? Where's the sweet spot for, challenge within a game? This is something I think about that a lot, because I'm like, at 93%, the team loves winning, but at some point we're going to get bored with it, right? And let's have a challenge. What are we going to work on next? They ask me stuff like that. What are we going to work on next? Where's the focus? What are we going to do? And those are fun conversations to have, because this is growth and development and moving forward, right?
Yeah. I don't know if I could ever get sick or bored of winning. I just love winning. I know what you mean, though. It's kind of like when you master something and you go, all right, I'm in practice. I used to practice like I would play a game. Mm-hmm. And I always came to practice ready to get to work, get down to business. I taught my son that too. And he has a certain work ethic about practice. Is like, you're going to bust your, what, and train as if you were in the real match. Now I've been blessed because
it's great. Rob, sorry to interrupt. Here's a funny little example of how it works for us. In 5 minutes, I've got a call with a client. And we're in attack time. So the beauty of it, though, is that we'll have more of these conversations. We already have booked John Swaggert's going to be on the Advisor's Edge. When folks listen to this, they may say, hey, this is interesting, we want more. Or maybe you don't care. Maybe you don't want to know more. Either way, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. Or maybe, you do a workshop, or you do something where you're like, hey guys, I'm going to show up on XYZ day. If you guys want to come by and check it out and see what this is all about, I'm going to do some teaching and show you how it's done, and just see what kind of, I always look at these things like a movement. I think you can create a movement of people who are really passionate about this and who really can see the vision and how it works and get results. I think at the end of the day, everybody wants to get better results. And if this helps me win, I'm in, man. Right?
Absolutely. And this has helped us win. And I just, this is about opening the book a little bit and saying, this is what it looks like. But we do things because our clients are looking for that. Right? So that's the feedback we need to have for when those are looking for it. I'm happy to be there. I get really passionate about this. I could do this all day long. I would love to. I'm just looking. It's no fun to do by myself. This is a team group effort.
Yeah, 100%. Well, listen, we landed the plane, didn't we? I mean, we landed the plane, and I think we're ready for another takeoff. So it's kind of like, okay, we're not going to come into the gate just yet. Okay. We landed the plane. We're going to sit here for a little while because we got another episode to do and continue into part 2 and maybe part 3. I don't know, but this is such a fascinating thing for me, Chad, and something that you've really got me fired up about and very passionate about, because I'll just share this as my final thought. The way I think about this now is I think about the things I've learned from you and how I can apply it to marketing, to sales, to operations to building systems. How can I apply what I'm learning to other areas of the business so that I can optimize all these different things? If I can just tweak this and make this a little better, or make this message a little better, or make this email a little better. That's the way I'm now applying this in my own business, in my own life, is I'm learning from this and then applying it real time and testing it and seeing how it works. Like, hey, how did this work? So that's what I'm so super grateful to you for, is it's enabled me to think differently about business and how I can be present in the here and now and be better and can just continue to be better and better and better. So thank you.
Amazing. Well, you're welcome. And you know what? I mean, this is the why for me, right? I want more of these conversations. This is what's really fun, working with those innovators, those leaders, those business folks that are doing it out there. And what can we learn together that we just haven't learned before? Yeah. That's an exciting world. And it's never ending, which is the fun part.
Well, let's just say this: to be continued. And so, Chad, thank you so much for being on today and me interviewing you. I feel like it was a great back and forth, which is really what we're after here. And I think I learned a lot. I think you did too. And listen, if you got value from being part of our show and part of our community that we're building, I mean, to me, this is a movement. Please like, subscribe, join this movement, and whatever is coming next, I'm sure Chad is probably going to come up with something really cool to invite you guys to. And we'd love to have you as a guest and just keep sharing the value to you. So we appreciate you on the Advisor's Edge podcast, and stay tuned for the next episode. Who knows what we're going to have in store for you next, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.